My sister has gone bad. She drinks, smokes, and doesn't come home at night. She even brings strange women home. Just a moment ago, I had climbed onto the bed, hoping to find a pillow, but I felt a sharp sound. A hand slapped right onto a face. Before I could even process it, the next second, I was lifted under the bed. A girl's voice, cold and low, echoed, "Sister Sue, there's a thug in your house." I exploded with anger. "Big sister, get a grip. This is my bed. Sunayan is my sister. You're the thug here. But isn't this thug a little too handsome?" My sister was once a popular singer. She came from a talent show. She could sing well. She looked youthful. She was a big star for a few years, but then the company started exploiting her. My sister was young and headstrong. In a fit of anger, she broke her contract with the company. She didn't rely on our family. She worked hard to pay off the penalty for 5 or 6 years. During that time, to make ends meet, she secretly borrowed money from me to raise pigs. Of course, eventually, she lost everything and was left with nothing. The little piglets that couldn't be sold were quite cute, though. I roasted them and ate them. Her prime years were squandered just like that. And just like that, she turned 35. When our whole family thought my sister was finally going to accept reality and quietly return home to inherit the family fortune, my sister started acting out again. She, who usually doesn't touch a drop of alcohol, would come home smelling of booze and smoke. Sometimes she wouldn't even come home at all. My dad quietly found me. "Su Ching, your sister must have been corrupted by someone. In our house, she only listens to you. Help me figure out what's going on with her." When Dad said something, how could I not comply? So on a dark and windy night, I sneaked to my sister's place. There were no cigarettes or alcohol, no party, no handsome guy. All that greeted me was a colorful blackness and the ticking of a clock in the silence. There wasn't even a shadow. I breathed a sigh of relief, since I was already there. I relied on my memory to open the door to my room. Climbing onto the bed, I lifted the covers, crawling in, ready to sleep. I was padding around the bed, searching for a pillow. Suddenly, there was a sharp slap. My palm slapped something soft. It made a crisp sound. I gently squeezed it. Before I could fully savor the feeling, the next second, I was lifted off the ground. My body was lifted into the air, and I was placed under the bed. In the darkness, a blurred figure sat up. It was hazy, almost like a scene from a ghost film. I forced myself to hold back a scream. My mind exploded with countless fragmented thoughts. I tried to rush over to turn on the light, but the shadowy figure grabbed my wrist. I was so scared, my body broke out in cold sweat. I didn't dare to move an inch. The figure spoke in a faint voice. "Don't turn on the light. I'm not wearing clothes." It was a female ghost, a very strange one too. I swallowed nervously. The figure's voice was hoarse. It sounded like she hadn't had enough sleep. "How did you get in?" I responded quietly. "This is my house." The figure chuckled softly. "Sunayan and you, what's your relationship?" "She's my sister." The figure yawned. "Prove it." I don't know why, but the ghost looked so lifeless. I wasn't as scared anymore. My voice regained its strength. "What's there to prove she's my sister? If you don't believe me, ask me anything." The figure sneered coldly. "What's Sunayan's birthday?" Without thinking, I blurted out, "September 8th. The figure gave a mysterious chuckle in the darkness. For some reason, that laugh was strangely captivating. The figure pulled out a phone. The weak glow of the screen faintly outlined her jawline. It was actually quite beautiful. For a moment, I was entranced. The phone dialed. "Sue's sister. Big sister. Get it straight. This is my house. Sunayan is my sister. You're the thug, aren't you?" Soon, my door was opened. A beam of light hit my face. In the faint light, my sister was wearing pajamas. She was crouched down, her hair messy, holding some random wooden gun. Her eyes were scanning the room cautiously. She looked like a foraging rat. There was a strange beauty to her, like a missing piece in her brain. "Where's the thug?" I smiled slightly and greeted her. Hi! My sister turned and locked eyes with me. Her sharp gaze softened to confusion in an instant. In this moment, silence spoke louder than words. After all, we hadn't seen each other in months. I wanted to rush over and give my sister a hug, but sadly, the figure's grip on my wrist didn't loosen. I had to stand still. I sweetly and crisply called out, "Sister!" Sunayan lowered the wooden gun, staring at me. A smile appeared on her face. "Su Ching!" I called even more sweetly. "Sister!" My sister also cooperated with a tender response. "Su Ching!" The atmosphere had been built up to this point. The figure must have already witnessed the great power of familial bonds. But the figure was completely unaffected. Her tone still carried the indifference of someone who had just woken up. "Su sister, she says your birthday is September 8th. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. I let out a dry laugh. "Isn't it?" "Sister?" Sunayan's face instantly darkened. "Where did this thug come from? I don't know him. Throw him out." There was a bit of family affection, but not much. Sunayan dragged me out. In the interplay of light and shadow, I vaguely caught a glimpse of the figure's face. Her skin was extremely pale, with sharp, defined features. She looked like a soul-snatching fairy, and it seemed like she really wasn't wearing any clothes. I was about to take a closer look at her collarbone for confirmation, but the figure caught me in the act. I quickly averted my gaze, but still accidentally made eye contact with her. It was over. This was really becoming like a thug. The figure was dressing in the bedroom. In the living room, I tugged at my sister's sleeve. "My dear sister, I promise I'll never forget your birthday again." Sunayan's expression softened slightly. "How many times have I told you? My birthday is August 9th. August 9th. Su Ching, am I not your real sister? Where's your memory? Did I'm so miserable with my sweet little complaints? Did I charm my big star sister into forgetting?" Sunayan couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. She patted my head. My sister was the easiest to please. As long as I called her a big star, she'd be happier than anyone else. That topic was swept under the rug. It was my turn to straighten up now. I instantly became serious. "Sunayan, tell me the truth. What's going on with you lately?" Sunayan's gaze drifted elsewhere. What? Choosing to play deaf, huh?" I leaned in and grabbed her ear. I raised my voice. "Drinking, smoking, staying out all night, then casually bringing strange women home." Sunayan made a wah sound, clearly lacking confidence. Her voice had weakened a lot. "What nonsense are you saying? What strange women? This is your dream sister's little sister. She just came back from abroad with Jong Yuking." Dream sister Jong Yuking. From over a decade ago during the talent show. She was the one recognized as the full net CP with my sister, Jong Yuking. I covered my mouth. "You two rekindled your old flame?" Sunayan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by rekindled? The fire of our friendship never went out." Just as I was about to speak, the figure came out of the bedroom. Sunayan and I both looked at the figure. She wore a simple white t-shirt and black pants, outlining the contours of a young girl. She had a tall and slender figure, estimated to be over 170 centimeters. Her skin indeed was very fair. Her pupils were dark and bright. Her double eyelids gave her a lazy, indifferent, and cold expression when she looked at people. It felt like she hadn't slept enough. Her nose was high and straight. Her lips were thin and pink. A slight curve hung at the corners of her mouth. This thug was almost too beautiful. I had always known Jong Yuking was very beautiful. During the talent show back then, she made it to the trending searches with just her looks. But I never expected that Jong Yuking's little sister would also be so ridiculously beautiful. If Dream's sister was a true blue, righteous, and stunning beauty, her sister was basically a little enchantress who could captivate hearts. But this little enchantress sure had a strong hand. I'm still sore from it now. I stared at the figure. The figure looked at me and Sunayan looked at me and the figure. The atmosphere became awkward for a few seconds. My sister broke the silence first, asking cautiously, UTDID in single quotes do anything, right? The figure smiled politely and answered succinctly, no, although she was very beautiful. Kicking me wasn't something I could forgive. I muttered beside the figure, you kicked me, and even pretended to be a ghost to scare me. Have you forgotten? The figure slightly tilted her head toward me. Her enchanting profile came into my view. I couldn't bear to blink. She was indeed young. Her skin so soft it seemed to glisten, but for some reason, there were a few faint red marks on it. Brother, she whispered, think about what happened before you acted. Her voice was extremely low, the tone cold, but in that moment, it was somewhat carelessly seductive. And since she was so close, it felt like she was speaking right next to my ear. With just a few words, a tingling sensation spread from my earlobe all the way through my body. It also brought back my memories. At the time, I was so terrified. My mind went blank, now that I think about it. Before she kicked me, I think I touched something soft. That uneven texture. It felt like a human face. Did I slap her? I looked at the figure, unable to believe it. The figure happened to be looking at me as well. I gave her a confused look. She gently nodded, her gaze showing a mix of helplessness and deep, unshakable sleepiness. After confirming it, I was suddenly choked by my own saliva. My cheeks quickly flushed red. In the dead of night, I was sleeping soundly, only to be slapped awake. This slap didn't seem so unforgivable now. I lowered my head, not daring to look at the figure, but her gaze seemed to stay on me. Looking at my current situation with some concern, Sunine quickly changed the topic. Hey, how? You just got back from abroad. Still adjusting to the time difference. Go back to sleep soon. The figure glanced at me. A faint smile appeared on her lips. Sue's sister, I'll just sleep on the couch. Maybe it was due to a guilty conscience. I reached out and gently pushed her. Tonight, you can sleep on the bed. No need to thank me, as the heavens bear witness. I really only intended to push her back. But maybe it's because I've been staying up too much, and today's events were a bit overwhelming. My hand, almost like it had a mind of its own, landed perfectly on the spot at the side of the figure's waist. Even making a sound as I did, it felt exactly like a scoundrel teasing a virtuous woman. Sunayan's eyes went wide. I could almost read her lips saying, pervert. I stood frozen, my body stiff. I looked down at my hand. It had already ended up in the wrong place twice. That rebellious hand doesn't deserve to stay. The figure turned to face me. Her eyes were almost closed from sleepiness. Her voice was muffled and soft from fatigue. Brother, don't hit me. I'll listen to you. It seemed like she misunderstood. But that wasn't important. What was important was, I think I was starting to feel my heart race. How could I resist a little demon who made me lose my mind? Who could resist someone so cute? After the figure went back to her room, Sunayan pulled me into the karaoke room. The silly smile on my face hadn't even faded. Sunayan tapped my forehead. Su Ching, you scared me just now. Meeting someone for the first time and patting them on the back. I'm really worried you'll break something. Break something? How does someone on the back relate to breaking bones? Her back isn't made of iron. Obviously, the touch felt soft. Sunayan waved her hand. I understood and walked over. Sunayan's voice was like a mosquito's buzz. Jonghee is sick. Those 5 words floated like a hammer. It felt like a huge shock to my heart. I immediately became cynical. Damn it! How could such a beautiful person be sick? Could it be because it's too open abroad? Maybe. She has the face of a little demon after all. She must have surrounded herself with handsome guys. But damn! She's so young. And she's already ruined her own happiness for 3 generations. Who could accept being in a purely platonic relationship with someone like this? Looking but never able to touch ... I almost myself from crying. I was lost in my thoughts. And just then, Sunayan with a puzzled look on her face. What's with that expression? What do you think Jonghee is like? My melancholic mood suddenly halted. So you're saying there's still hope? Sunayan sighed as she looked at me. Jonghee's sickness is that she can't kiss anyone. She get a fever. She's not to use to any overly intimate contact with people. It'll cause stress reactions. She has that kind of illness, so if there was physical contact, what happens then? Sunayan stroked her chin. Dream sister said, back in middle school, some girls deliberately provoked Jonghee. In the end, she ended up with a fracture. I silently swallowed my saliva. I moved my arm a little. Luckily, I didn't break anything. Maybe Jonghee was just tired today, which limited her abilities. Otherwise, with my level of clumsiness, I'd probably end up with a permanent disability. Sunayan ruffled my hair like a dog. Su Ching, when are you going to change that habit of falling for every girl you meet? You're turning 27 this year. That's almost 30. I retorted. By that logic, you're almost 40. Daily question. Are you famous yet? Did you gather enough for rent? Sunayan pressed her hand to her heart, looking heartbroken. Su Ching, I'm your sister, you know? Your real sister. I had originally wanted to learn more about Jonghee's condition, like whether the duration of a kiss and the fever level were positively correlated, or if there was a possibility of any bugs in the system. But Sunayan got 5 or 6 phone calls and had no time to deal with me. From what I could hear, the person on the other end was probably some program director for a music show. It turned out Sunayan's strange behavior these days was because she was busy securing gigs. Jong Yukin came all the way from abroad, probably to help my sister achieve her dream. Here's the opportunity. Su Ching, ask me tomorrow if you have any questions. Sunayan spoke as she threw on a coat and headed out. I put my hand to my forehead. Sis, you're still wearing those huge pants. Big red ones at that. I don't even know how deep my sister's obsession with red is. From phone cases to pants, everything's red. And she's always online promoting herself as cheap and durable. Sunayan turned back wearing an air of pride. I know, of course. I was just going out to check the weather. I'm doing some stargazing, and this time, I'll definitely be famous. But even if I'm not famous, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is I can finally sing on stage again. As she said that, my sister began singing Jong Yuking's famous song. She was dancing and singing, happily like a child who had just received a certificate of achievement. It was like she had some kind of discount coupon, like 35 and over, get 30 off. Or for an IQ over 250, get 200 off. That night, I had a particularly maddening dream. In the dream, I couldn't resist temptation and forcibly kissed Jonghee. Then both Jonghee and I ended up in the ICU. She had a high fever that wouldn't break. My internal organs were bleeding. The hospital even gave us a couple's package. I woke up suddenly, grabbed my phone, and saw a message Sunayan had sent last night. Su Ching, you know that both me and your dream sister value family deeply. So when it came to taking care of you and Hee or recording the show, me and your dream sister didn't hesitate to choose recording the show. I'm flying tonight. I'll be back in 3 months. While you're at home, don't bully Hee. I stared at the phone screen for a few seconds, and the corners of my mouth gradually lifted, born with a rebellious streak. That's the most similar trait me and Sunayan share as siblings. Knowing it's not the right thing to do, but still unable to stop myself. The more difficult it seems, the more I want to challenge it. It's 8 o'clock, time to wake Hee up. The little still half asleep will probably be all soft and cute. I happily pushed the door open. To my surprise, Jonghee was already dressed, holding her hand up as though she was about to knock on the door. I froze in place. I messed up. How did this little demon get up so early? Jonghee's cold eyes held a faint smile. Awake! Her voice was cold, but her tone was casually lazy. My heart skipped a beat. A demon is truly a demon. She doesn't need to try hard to allure. Just being herself makes me lose my mind. Jonghee's gaze lingered on my face for a few seconds. Then she subtly curved the corner of her lips. Let's eat, brother. I followed Jonghee to the table. A table full of new breakfast. Jonghee smiled and handed me the chopsticks. Sis said you're picky about food, so I made a little extra. to see if you like anything. My eyelid twitched. A bad feeling began to rise in my chest. Did Sunayan say anything else about me being picky? Jonghee's tone was calm. She said my brother has a bad temper. He likes to hit people. So I should be careful. My smile faltered. I squeezed out 3 words through clenched teeth. Anything else? Jonghee continued. Sis also said that my brother has a lot of ex-girlfriends, and sometimes they come over to ask for emotional debts. So I shouldn't open the door randomly. Well, Sunayan, this is how you spread rumors about me. Don't blame me if I get ruthless online. I still have some old blackmail photos from her talent show days, with her hair in that ridiculous gamete style, and looking as dark as charcoal. I took a deep breath, in a relaxed tone. Don't believe it, sis was just joking. Jonghee nodded. I don't believe it. I only believe my brother. Such a good girl. Such sweet words. I want to take you home, but I probably won't even get to hug you before I'm sent to the hospital. After breakfast, I decided to do the dishes in front of Jonghee to show off a little. Jonghee couldn't stop me. She could only silently watch as I took the dishes into the kitchen. As a result, due to my lack of basic understanding of my sister's kitchen layout, I stepped into the kitchen and was immediately caught off guard by line 7. The bowl fell to the floor, shattering into pieces that spread all over. Porcelain shards littered the ground. I cast a resentful glance at the unnecessary little step beneath my feet, wondering where Sunayan had gotten the design inspiration from. Are you alright? Jonghee hurriedly reached the doorway, trying to step inside. Seeing the mess of broken porcelain, I instinctively tried to stop Jonghee, but as usual, I forgot about the little step again. I stepped on it and instantly lost my balance. In moments of crisis, there is no time for thinking. So I decisively reached out and grabbed Jonghee. Jonghee instinctively wrapped her arm around my waist, and after I regained my balance, I looked up, only to meet Jonghee's eyes. It was the most beautiful pair of eyes I had ever seen, brilliant like stars, dazzling and radiant. Her pitch-black pupils were like an endless abyss, seemingly capable of absorbing all the light around them, making it impossible not to be drawn in. But the next second, Jonghee's hand on my waist stiffened slightly, and I could sense her true thoughts at that moment. Although reluctant, I quickly took 2 steps back, pulling away from Jonghee's embrace. After all, a fracture is no laughing matter. Yet Jonghee still held the same position, her expression a little somber, as if lost in thought. But soon, she replaced her expression with a charming, light smile. Brother, I'll handle it. With that, Jonghee stepped confidently into the kitchen, starting to clean up the mess on the floor. I watched Jonghee's smooth, flowing back, her narrow waist, and couldn't help but recall the warm sensation from earlier. I silently swallowed, and immediately regretted it. If I had known, I would have hugged her just a little longer earlier. Should have loosened my grip right before she started moving. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but mentally picture a scene. Jonghee standing in the interplay of light and shadow, reaching out her hand to me, with a voice full of deep affection. Want to date? The kind with fractures? I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Jonghee turned to look at me, and I quickly suppressed my smile, putting on an expression as if I wanted to help but didn't know how. Jonghee paused, slightly curving her lips into a smile, and tilted her head, as if suppressing a laugh. Was she making fun of me? In the following weeks, I made an effort to present myself in front of Jonghee, trying to charm her with my personal charisma, and save my rapidly crumbling image. I pretended to casually ask Dream Sister about Jonghee's forbidden items, and the type of boy she liked. As for the forbidden topics, Dream Sister only mentioned that Jonghee had severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. She couldn't stand sharing utensils with others. As for the type of boy she liked, Jong Yeching gave me a few concept words: hardworking, gentle, kind. Everything revolved around these 3 words. I devised a meticulous plan. I vowed to Jonghee You've just returned to the country. Rest well. I'll take care of everything. But after pretending to be the hardworking baby for 3 days, I couldn't get out of bed no matter what in the morning. The alarm clock was useless. Every day, Jong-hee would get up early, go for a run outside, make breakfast sure, and then knock on my door. Sometimes I'd lie in bed, taking my sweet time getting ready, and she would just wait outside quietly, never rushing or getting annoyed. One time, Jong-hee knocked on my door. I replied and then fell back asleep. I slept for another 20 minutes, thinking that Jong-hee must have gone off to do something else. So I got up, looking disheveled, with a messy bedhead and dark circles under my eyes, and opened the door to go to the bathroom. Instead, I ended up stumbling straight into Jong-hee's arms. My nose bumped into her head, and the tenderness made me almost cry. The urge to pee disappeared with the shock. I don't know when it started, but no matter whether I woke up early or late, every time I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw when I opened the door was Jong-hee. That stunningly beautiful face. She would be leaning against the doorframe, her soft black hair falling over her forehead, her lips a rosy red, looking like a tall, elegant little tree in the morning light, full of youthful charm. So irresistible to look at. It caused me to have several nights in a row of dreams that made my face flush and my heart race. I comforted myself. It's all right. The hardworking persona is gone, but I still have the other two, gentleness and kindness. As long as I maintain them and don't lose my temper, I'll be gentle at my core, kind at my core. Who knew that during the busiest days when I was writing my drafts, the renovation upstairs started? With construction in the morning, and more in the afternoon, and even at night. I felt like my brain was filled with the sound of drills buzzing. I couldn't focus on my draft, so I started battling with Soo Nyan's haters. It seems like Soo Nyan is really about to become popular. There are even people starting to hate on her now. It was funny in the end, and I left one last remark. Soo Nyan, the only flaw she has is that she's a bit dark-skinned. Other than that, she has no flaws. Then I put down my tablet, rolled up my sleeves, and while Jong-hee was in the kitchen preparing lunch, I stormed upstairs, banging on the door. The door opened, and inside stood a burly man. I quickly blurted out everything I had prepared in my mind. The burly man looked at me with an impatient expression. This is my house. If I want to renovate, I will. I got irritated too. Can't you just follow the rules and respect the other residents? The burly man reached out to push me. Come on, not argue with you. I stumbled back. And before I could finish speaking, I suddenly found myself in a warm embrace. The scent of mint filled my nose. When I saw who it was, I quickly swallowed the words that were about to come out of my mouth. The burly man glanced at Jong-hee, and his previously arrogant demeanor softened. He tried to close the door, but Jong-hee accurately placed her arm against the door, blocking his move. The burly man tried to push harder, but the door didn't budge. I stood aside, dazed, watching Jong-hee, whose aura was now filled with low pressure. I had seen her confused, and I had seen her smile, but I had never seen her look this fierce. Her gaze was cold and piercing, her lips pressed tight, and when she stared at someone, it felt like she was eyeing Jong-hee. Spoke coldly, and the burly man's tone softened considerably. You guys, Jong-hee repeated. Apologize to him. The burly man and Jong-hee stared at each other for a few seconds. And then the burly man waved his hand, looking at me. Fine. I can't, you guys. I'm sorry. Jong-hee then released her arm, and the burly man slammed the door shut. The sound of renovation stopped immediately. I couldn't stop smiling throughout the whole ordeal until Jong-hee turned to look at me. I forced a silly grin, trying to make myself look a little scared. Oh, that was pretty scary, huh? I said, and then tried to think of something sad to keep my composure. But all I could think about was the burly man's puzzled face, and her sharp elbow digging into his waistband, and the half-exposed short sleeves. I laughed so hard my body shook, and I had to cover my face and quickly run home. When I got home, I suddenly realized something. Jong-hee had actively hugged me earlier and held me for several seconds. and I didn't break anything. This surprising discovery filled me with joy. I became even more motivated to write my draft that evening. In the middle of the night, I played Sunine and Dream Sisters' music variety show and searched for inspiration. They truly deserve to be called the ultimate fan hell. They could remember each other's lyrics more clearly than their own. After the show ended, I took off my headphones and vaguely heard the sound of flowing water. It was coming from the bathroom. I checked the time. It was already 2 in the morning. The scenes from the horror movie I had watched earlier started playing in my mind, one after another. I rolled over and got out of bed. I quietly tiptoed to the bathroom door. Through the frosted glass, I could vaguely make out the figure inside. I lightly knocked on the door. "Jong-hee, is that you?" There was no response. I shakily grabbed the doorknob. Silence! Then I'm opening the door. I was about to push with all my strength when the door opened by itself. Jong-hee was wrapped in a towel, her wet hair still dripping water. My gaze uncontrollably slid down her body, and ultimately, pathetically, it stuck to her legs. I hadn't expected it, but although Jong-hee looked slim, her figure was surprisingly well proportioned. She definitely had strength. No wonder she could break someone's bones so easily. "Su-ching!" Jong-hee's voice broke through my thoughts, low and husky, and at night, it somehow sounded even more seductive. I froze for a moment. "Why you? What did you do?" I wasn't sure if it was the late hour, but I felt Jong-hee's gaze on me was intense. So intense that I could look her in the eye. Actually, Jong-hee had a fairy-like beauty, but she usually appeared calm and peaceful, lazy and carefree, with no desires or demands, which gave her a soft aura, balancing out the sharpness in her. Jong-hee lowered her gaze and let out a soft chuckle. "Nothing. I thought I was dreaming." "Brother, why aren't you sleeping?" Standing outside the bathroom, I blurted out an explanation. "Don't misunderstand. I wasn't spying on you while you were showering, although I did briefly have that thought." Jong-hee curled her lips into a smile. I believe you, brother." I looked at her and realized she didn't seem like she truly believed me. Her tone was like she was teasing a child. I glanced at Jong-hee's plump, rosy lips, and suddenly felt a rush of unease. An unruly fire surged within me. Reluctantly, I glanced at Jong-hee's spring-like figure. "It's fine. I'm going back to sleep now. You should rest early too." I needed to leave. I wasn't sure what I might do if I stayed longer. Jong-hee gently placed her hand on my head, her touch delicate, as if I were fragile porcelain that could break with a touch. "Good night, brother." My heart pounded like thunder. I didn't even say goodnight and just fled back to my room. Once I shut the door, I clutched the blanket and joyfully rolled around on my bed. After a while, with the sharp perception of a writer, I realized a small detail I had missed earlier. There was no heat in the bathroom, which meant ... At 2 in the morning, Jong-hee took a cold shower. Young people's thoughts are truly hard to understand. The following weeks were a blur as I rushed to finish my drafts. On the day I finished, I posted a long-awaited status on my social media. A bunch of my buddies started calling me to go out and have fun. My mom, who is usually so busy that I never see her, was now making the rare offer to take me out for a meal. I turned them all down because today was Jong-hee's birthday. I had secretly asked Dream Sister about it in front of Jong-hee. I pretended not to know, but in reality, I secretly ordered a cake behind her back. By noon, I snuck to Jong-hee's room and peeked at her, hoping to grab the cake when she wasn't paying attention and give her a surprise. But through the door crack, I saw Jong-hee standing quietly by the window, gazing out the window motionlessly. Because of the angle, I could only see her back. Backlit, looking lonely and desolate. Dream Sister had mentioned to me before that while Jong-hee was abroad, she had very few close friends. Back then, the company overseas was just starting out, and she was stuck in the low point of her career. Her parents were busy, and she was busy too, so they often left Jong-hee alone at home. sometimes for an entire day. Back then, Jong-hee was still young, and the language barrier was a problem. She often got bullied by classmates. But Jong-hee had her ways, making those who picked on her pay the price. As she grew up, her academic achievements were excellent, and after graduation, she went straight to the research institute. She was always busy, rarely attending social activities. And with that strange illness, Jong-hee rarely had any close contact with people. Her personality gradually became distant. She didn't like to smile, and it was hard for her to get close to anyone. But because Jong-hee always shone brightly in front of me, I never took Dream Sister's words seriously. But seeing Jong-hee looking so lonely today, it really made me feel heartbroken. A little demon in need of pity from the heavens. Today, let me, your brother, pamper you properly. I grabbed the cake and went home. By the time I got back, Jong-hee had already made lunch. When she saw the cake, her expression completely changed. It was as if she was frozen in place. It was the first time I saw her smile so widely, showing a subtle dimple. It was so beautiful that I couldn't look away. If it weren't for the fear of causing trouble, I might have just pulled her into my arms and kissed her. Brother, is this for me? I proudly nodded. This is my favorite cake. The cream is sweet but not overwhelming. I ordered it a week in advance. I hurriedly placed the birthday hat on Jong-hee's head. The size of the birthday hat was a bit small, so Jong-hee looked a little ridiculous wearing it. But there's a saying, fashion is mostly determined by your face. With a face like Jong-hee's, she could even make an iron bucket look beautiful. Very good. Now, let's light the candles. I carefully inserted each candle, one by one. There were 23 candles in total. I excitedly turned off the lights, drew the curtains, and the room instantly became dark. Only the cake remained as a glowing focal point. The sense of ceremony was perfect. I handed Jong-hee a fork and grabbed a metal spoon from the kitchen for myself. Jong-hee quietly watched me running back and forth. What are you looking at? Make a wish. I'm going to sing you the birthday song. In my off-key singing, Jong-hee made her wish and blew out the candles. I eagerly scooped a big mouthful of cream with my spoon and stuffed it into my mouth. I urged Jong-hee, try it too and see if it's sweet. Jong-hee casually picked up the spoon I had just used, scooped a bite of cake, and put it in her mouth. It's sweet, she said, and then licked the cream left on her lips. Is the little demon underestimating my self-control? Haven't my feelings for her been obvious enough? And didn't she say she doesn't like sharing utensils with others? Dream Sister emphasized this to me. It's Jong-hee's biggest taboo. I opened my mouth to say something, but was interrupted by a knock on the door. It should be my alcohol delivery. I opened the door, but there was no alcohol, no delivery man either. What I saw was 2 large bags, because I was so familiar with them. When the door opened just a crack, I knew exactly who it was. I was just a bit confused and couldn't believe it. Why would she come here during work hours? Su-ching, congrats on finishing your draft. While speaking, Bai Ningbing entered the house, placing 2 full bags of snacks in the hallway. Su-ching, why did you pull the curtains during the day? It's bad for your eyes. Bai Ningbing was speaking when she saw Jong-hee standing by the table. Jong-hee wore her trademark smile. Because my brother is celebrating my birthday. Bai Ningbing paused for a moment, then returned a polite smile, and looked at me. Su-ching, this is Dream Sister's sister, Jong Yuching. You should remember her. She's my sister's best friend. Jong-hee leaned slightly towards me, and Lee added, I've been living with my brother for the past few months. Bai Ningbing's smile became a little stiff. I was still pulling the curtains at that moment and didn't notice the subtle tension between the two of them. When the curtains were opened, the room instantly brightened. I finally saw Bai Ningbing clearly. It had been months since I last saw her, but she seemed exactly the same as before. Her demeanor was mature and composed, and when you looked at her, she exuded the aura of a business elite. I spoke up to remind her, Bai Ningbing, Isn't the company busy? The implication was clear. You can go back to work now. Bai Ningbing had been like this for over 10 years. A true workaholic. Otherwise, my mom wouldn't have chosen her as the heir to the company. She liked to plan 10 steps ahead, only doing what she was sure of. Her world had its own set of rules, and she never allowed anyone to try and break those rules. 5 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I challenged her once, but I failed. At that time, I hadn't even graduated from university. I thought Bai Ningbing was a bit dull, and I particularly liked teasing her. She had been overly nice to me back then. One time, I said I wanted fried rice in the middle of the night, and she actually cooked it and brought it to me. Later, I passionately pursued her for half a year, but she said she only treated me like a younger brother. She treated me well out of a sense of responsibility because my mom had helped her before. She said her career wasn't stable yet, and she had no plans for a relationship. But just after rejecting me, she turned around and agreed to a confession from a handsome guy who was about her age, and from a family with similar background. This was the cute excuse of not wanting to date. It was clear she just didn't want to date me. However, after going through this, I was able to let go. I no longer obsessed over her. Sometimes, letting go of someone is just a matter of a moment. The day she broke up with that well-matched handsome guy, the whole company was buzzing about it. But my heart remained unaffected. After all, it had long been rumored that Bai Ningbing wasn't interested in handsome guys at all. It was always the handsome guys trying to maintain their relationship with her. But I don't know why. Ever since Bai Ningbing broke up, she started paying excessive attention to me. Just like today, she came over directly to my house because of a single post I made on social media, which was very uncharacteristic of her usual style. Bai Ningbing's voice brought my thoughts back. I have arrangements for work, but this afternoon I'll take the day off to come over and celebrate with you. Bai Ningbing requested time off. Now, this is really a rare occurrence. Since we're all here, let's eat the cake together. Everyone take a seat. I took the lead and sat down on the chair. Jonghee and Bai Ningbing both walked toward the seat beside me. What's going on? I pulled Jonghee over. The birthday star sits next to brother. I'll take some of the good luck. Bai Ningbing silently sat down across from me. Su Ching, are you and Jonghee living together? It must be inconvenient. It's all right. Jonghee paused what she was doing and quietly looked at Bai Ningbing, her face expressionless. Bai Ningbing looked at me. I have a 50 square meter bachelor's apartment next to the company. If Jonghee doesn't mind, she can stay there for now. I quickly declined. No need. Jonghee just came back from abroad, and she's not familiar with a lot of things. She needs someone to take care of her. Bai Ningbing smiled. Su Ching, you can't even take care of yourself. How are you going to take care of others? I was stunned by this remark. Since I was young, everyone always thought of me as a childish person. I was almost 30, with no stable job, no stable relationship, no stable life. In their eyes, I had never matured, especially in Bai Ningbing's eyes. I probably never even truly grew up. It seemed like Bai Ningbing's rejection of me was right, because we weren't in the same league. While I was struggling with my emotions, Jonghee gently took my hand across the table. Her warm touch instantly calmed me down. I think brother takes really good care of me. Brother is amazing. There's no need for anyone to criticize him. I squeezed Jonghee's fingers in agreement. Bai Ningbing stood up. Some cream got on my clothes. I'll go to the restroom. As she passed by me, she gave me a look, and I felt a bit confused, but I still stood up to follow her. Bai Ningbing, let me explain how to adjust the hot and cold water. After I entered, Bai Ningbing closed the restroom door with a soft thud. Su Ching, you've grown up. Obviously, it's been 5 years. How could I not have grown up? The crops have changed several times. Bai Ningbing took a deep breath, her eyes slightly red. Su Ching, I regret it. I asked softly, Did your project fail or did you lose money from stock trading? Bai Ningbing laughed softly and slowly moved closer to me. In the narrow space, I could smell the perfume on her. It was a bit sweet and heavy, completely different from her usual style. Su Qing, does this scent feel familiar? This perfume is the birthday gift you gave me last year. I remember this perfume was something I bought but didn't like the smell of, so I casually gave it to her as a gift. I pushed her slightly and lowered my voice. Bai Ningbing, what are you trying to say? Bai Ningbing's arm pressed against both sides of me, whispering in my ear, Su Qing, can you like me again? Su Qing, I was wrong. I like you. I really like you. I only like you. I caught the meaning of her words, and a bitter smile spread across my face. Bai Ningbing, where were you years ago? Now you come to me with this. Is it meaningful? I turned around, intending to open the door. Bai Ningbing grabbed my shoulder and turned me back around. Su Qing, I'm sorry. I was too scared 5 years ago. I hesitated. I was afraid of the rumors, but now I've figured it out. I just want to be with the person I like. Su Qing, I'm happy when I'm with you. Please give me another chance. Bai Ningbing's tears fell onto my hand, burning with intensity. This was the first time I had seen Bai Ningbing like this. The first time she used the word please. In my memory, she had always been confident, with an easy, carefree demeanor. She had never seemed so humble and vulnerable. Just then, I heard Zhang He's voice outside. Brother, the alcohol has arrived. I pushed Bai Ningbing away forcefully. Bai Ningbing raised her head, hugging me tightly. I didn't want to do this so quickly, but Zhang He, I feel different with her than with others, so I'm a little anxious. I didn't say anything, just opened the door and walked out. Since she had figured out my feelings for Zhang He, she shouldn't be trying to disturb me anymore. Bai Ningbing had always thought I was childish. But where was she better than me? Zhang He had already placed the alcohol on the table. One bottle was already half empty. Brother, I think I'm not feeling well. I turned to Bai Ningbing and gave her my final dismissal. Zhang He is unwell. Can you leave? Bai Ningbing looked up, her smile bitter. Okay, I understand. Su Qing, did I come too late? When the door closed behind her, I looked at Zhang He with concern. Where do you feel uncomfortable? Is it because we shared a spoon, and now you're having a reaction? Zhang He shook her head, her gaze soft and distant. Did you drink too much? Zhang He asked, looking at me, her movements a little slow. Brother, what did you say to that person? Her question somehow made me feel like I had been caught in a secret. Zhang He slowly stood up. I instinctively wanted to support her, but I also feared that my old bones couldn't handle the strain. After thinking it through, just as Zhang He was about to make intimate contact with the floor, I still held her in my arms. She was drunk. Maybe that dulled her reactions a bit. The scent of alcohol mixed with a hint of mint surrounded me. I kept a close eye on Zhang He's every move, ready to catch her if she suddenly fell. Zhang He was still mumbling. Brother, did you used to like that person? Her eyes sharp. A soft, delicate little demon. Pretty fun, actually. I helped Zhang He walk to the bed, responding to her as I did. Yeah, I liked her 5 years ago. Guess you could call it my first love. But I don't feel that way anymore. Zhang He's voice dropped. Then who does brother like now? Since Zhang He was drunk, she probably wouldn't remember anything I said anyway. I intentionally said in a teasing tone, I like you the most, brother. Just as we reached the edge of the bed, Zhang He and I somehow bumped into each other. I fell onto the bed with her in my arms, up close. All I could see was Zhang He's exquisite features and her sensual neck. Zhang He, do you feel like hitting me right now? Zhang He's dazed eyes slowly focused on my face. No! She said no! The red thread in her mind was slowly unraveling. Right now in my eyes, Jong-hee looked like a beautiful mushroom, dangerous yet captivating. I slowly loosened my grip on both sides, drawing closer to Jong-hee. How about now? Do you feel anything? Jong-hee nodded. My heart instantly tightened. I switched to defense mode, holding my head with both hands, but Jong-hee made no move, only giving me a faint smile. Brother, you smell so good. I strongly suspected she was teasing me. I tried to convince myself that it was Jong-hee who made the first move. I was just making the same mistake every man makes, and there's fever medicine at home, so it should be fine, right? Amidst the pounding of my heart, I slowly lowered my head, lightly brushing my lips against Jong-hee's, quickly pulling away. So soft, with a faint scent of alcohol. It was a bit overwhelming. After doing something bad, I lay there silently with Jong-hee, staring into her eyes for a few seconds. Our breaths entangled. Jong-hee's gaze gradually became intense and complex, like a fire. It directly burned into my heart. I was about to pull away, but suddenly felt someone gently press my head from behind. I lost my balance in an instant. For a second, in my disbelieving gaze, Jong-hee actively sealed my lips, giving me a sweet and gentle kiss to avoid things getting out of control. During a brief moment of catching my breath, I pushed Jong-hee away and scrambled back to my room, running as fast as I could. I looked at myself in the mirror, my lips slightly swollen, a red mark forming a blurred outline on my mouth. My breath was chaotic. My collar was disheveled. My clothes were wrinkled, and one of the buttons had fallen off. I covered my eyes, throwing myself onto the bed. My cheeks started to burn. Su-ching, why are you so pathetic? Taking advantage of someone when they're vulnerable. Even a rogue is more civilized than you. But strangely, despite everything that had just happened, Jong-hee seemed completely unaffected. Could it be that drunkenness was the flaw in this situation? I texted Dream Sister to ask, but instead, Su-nine sent me a voice message. What the hell? Su-ching, you need to stop filling your brain with nonsense. Don't even say it's because she's drunk. When Jong-hee was asleep, her dad kissed her, and she had a fever for 3 days. Then she added, we're finishing up the variety show, and there's an outdoor concert at the end. Make sure to take Jong-hee there. Sis loves you. Muah! The problem is, I don't even know how to face Jong-hee tomorrow. Maybe it's just anxiety. But I woke up at 7 in the morning for the first time in ages. I spent that time reflecting on life. By 7:30, I finally gathered the courage to open the door, just in time to see Jong-hee returning from her run. Her full, youthful energy was practically radiating. She wore a t-shirt soaked with sweat, which even faintly outlined her curves. I immediately turned around, ready to retreat back to my room. But Jong-hee called out to me, brother, what do you want for breakfast today? Did Jong-hee forget everything? I turned around. How about a ham and egg pancake with some millet porridge? Jong-hee smiled. Okay, I'll go show her first. She looked genuinely happy, with 2 faint dimples appearing. It seemed like she didn't remember a thing. At breakfast, Jong-hee took my hand and led me to the chair. I was a bit puzzled. Jong-hee, today you? I hesitated to find the right words. You're really into being close to people today, huh? Maybe I didn't phrase it the best way. I slowly drank my porridge to ease the awkwardness. Jong-hee responded calmly. We've already kissed. Isn't it okay to hold hands? I almost spit my porridge out. Jong-hee gently patted my back. Is it too hot, brother? I waved my hand. Do you remember? Jong-hee smiled a little helplessly. Although brother kissed me and ran away, I still felt something. I looked at Jong-hee suspiciously. You're not running a fever, are you? Jong-hee shook her head. I don't know why. But brother, you're different from others. Jong-hee met my gaze halfway. Su-ching! This was the second time Jong-hee had called my name directly. Her voice was soft and gentle. Does what you said yesterday still count? I couldn't handle Jong-hee's piercing gaze. I turned my head slightly. What did I say yesterday? Jong-hee stared at me. Forgot? My mind was a mess. I could only brush it off. I don't really remember. Jong-hee slowly moved closer to me. Want me to help you remember? Jong-hee's eyes were so beautiful. They seemed to contain a vast, dazzling sea of stars. Every time I looked into them, I couldn't escape. So when Jong-hee stared at me for just a moment, I found myself gradually saying, yes, Jong-hee did an excellent job of recreating what happened yesterday. Even more vividly than I remembered. By the time we reached the later part, I began to lose strength, relying entirely on Jong-hee to keep me from sliding off the chair. The chopsticks were knocked over at some point, falling to the ground. They made a sharp sound, but no one paid attention. On the way to the concert, I leaned against the car window, quietly admiring Jong-hee's stunning profile. This morning, I had stayed in bed for 10 extra minutes, and in that short time, Jong-hee had already planned her future clearly. She called her parents to tell them she didn't want to go back, then called the Overseas Research Institute, and quit her job. Later, she received a call from a domestic research institute, and scheduled an interview. She even received a call from a nearby real estate office and talked about property prices for a few minutes. Her tone was calm the entire time, with no hesitation at all, as if she were arranging someone else's life. I felt a little bitter. I guess in a way, I had stolen someone else's daughter. By noon, the sunlight filtered through the car window, casting light on Jong-hee's face, outlining her nearly perfect, delicate features. I had originally wanted to say, Jong-hee, do you know? You are the most dazzling person I've ever seen? Like a brilliant star. But the words in my mouth changed. Jong-hee, am I the biggest bug in your life? Jong-hee curled the corners of her lips, glancing at me sideways. Brother, you're not a bug. You're the most dazzling person I've ever seen. Like the brilliant stars in the sky. Although I was deeply moved, she was using my words. Does that count as another kind of soul connection? By evening, I was drowsy, and it felt like a small bug lightly pecked at my face. I turned over and went back to sleep. In my dream, I vaguely heard Jong-hee's voice by my ear. Thank you for making me realize that life can be this interesting. Su-ching, I love you. I instinctively replied. Baby, I love you too. After driving for the entire day, we finally arrived at Su-nyeon's concert. When I got out of the car, my legs were numb. If Jong-hee hadn't been supporting me, I would have almost ended up going to the sea of Jong-hee protected me all the way to the audience seats. Su-nyeon's opening speech was already nearing its end. But someone's appearance was like the stars tonight, suddenly lighting up your dark, dull life. Because of love, you also learned to love life again. In the short few minutes of the speech, Jong-hee listened intently, seemingly thoughtful, even with tears in her eyes, which startled me. As the music started, I took out my phone to record, but I saw a message from Dream Sister. Jong-hee was drunk the other day, and I was a bit worried. I texted Dream Sister to ask about Jong-hee's alcohol tolerance. Dream Sister was probably too busy, and replied to me today. But Dream Sister's response was, Jong-hee rarely drinks, but she can handle her liquor. I've never seen her drunk. Not drunk? So what happened that night? Later, the guys were on the phone with each other, and the conversation was perfectly in sync. When a woman is 3 parts drunk, it'll make you cry. Never believe their sweet words. I tugged at Jong-hee. When did you start liking me? Jong-hee gently removed the streamer from my hair, her voice soft and tempting. Maybe it was when I first called your name, or maybe even earlier. The first time you called my name was when you took a cold shower in the middle of the night. Could it be that she felt something for me back then? I widened my eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Jong-hee whispered in my ear. Because I love you so much. I wanted you to love me too. I wanted to wait for you to fall in love with me. From afar, Jung-hee and I were projected onto the big screen. Jung-hee's hand around my waist tightened, gently sealing my lips. The crowd around us was roaring, but all I could hear was the sound of our heartbeats, clear as the dazzling stars. But at this moment, all we could hear was the beat of each other's heart.